Hey, it's Coach Tim, Spider Juice Technologies, and I wanted to give you 3 very easy, non-geeky ways to boost your website traffic, leads, and sales. And if you just sit with me and hang in there for about less than 5 minutes, I'm going to give you some very easy, non-geeky ways, simple ways that you could do if you have just a little bit of technical in you, or you can let your webmaster do, okay? And that is, well, I'm not going to tell you yet. The first thing you got to understand is to understand any of this stuff when it comes to ranking is what Google says is not necessarily a ranking signal. We often talk about ranking signals, and they may or may not be. An example of that is mobile-friendly websites. Obviously, it makes sense you want to have a mobile-friendly website if you want to have traffic and conversions. So Google would say, yeah, you should have a mobile-friendly website, and they even gave it the initiative, the AMP initiative, if you know what that is which is builds very friendly websites for mobile that is based on a Google technology. I believe Google created it anyway. It's called AMP, Accelerated Mobile something or other. So anyway, what I want to talk to you about today is first, like I said, make sure that you understand that just because Google says something doesn't mean it's part of the algorithm. It just makes sense that you should probably follow it because your people are behaving in certain ways, right? If your website takes forever to load, then what happens is you have an abandonment. So your bounce rate goes up probably, right? Your lack of pages, time on site. Maybe they pogo stick, which is a real bad thing. A pogo stick is when somebody goes to Google, looks for Tim O'Keefe, and then leaves, and then goes back to Google, right? They go to timokeefe.com as an example, which I don't have. And then you go back to Google, you just told Google that's the wrong result, okay? This is all in the part 5 of the 5-part of Google branding, your website, your business, okay? And I'll include that little chart for you also, the umbrella, the branding umbrella, we like to call it. The other thing, so here's what I like to say. You know I coach. I'm using more and more the persona Coach Tim. These are cleats. These are my son's cleats, okay? We have a thing in football called speed kills. In websites, guess what? Speed kills. I'm going to give you 3 things you could do, non-geeky, that you could either do it yourself if you have the technical acumen, or if you need to have your webmaster do it, that you should do if you want to increase your possibility of making your visitors happy, which when there's directly or indirectly, it really doesn't matter what comes first, the chicken or the egg, that your visitors are happy so that Google is happy and you get rewarded with rankings. It sounds amazing that they're able to do that, but they do. Again, part 5 in the branding umbrella that we use here at Spider Juice Technologies. So number 1, the easiest way to increase your speed of your website is by compressing your images. Most people will just throw an image right off their phone, 1 point whatever megabytes or gigabytes even, and it's not compressed to the web. The web has its issues. And also your phone and your screen on your computer has a different way of seeing things that you're never going to get the full ability of all those pixels, the ability to create a beautiful picture, say if you were to print it, or go to publishing a printed magazine as an example, or a photo for your photo album. Your screen only has, I think, 256 pixels, right? And the web only goes so fast. and each image slows the heck out of your web page. It has to wait to load this stuff. So if you compress them, you'll do yourself very well. You can use it in your favorite compression softwares. You can use it off of your online. Just look for online compression, image compression, free. But the other thing that that's the easiest, if you use WordPress, a lot of us use WordPress, is Image Smush. WP Dev, I think, is the company that gives it. And it was free, then it cost, and now I think it's free again. So look for that or something similar, and you could just have that thing running on your website, on your WordPress site at all times. If you are like a realtor or any company that pulls in a feed, like realtors pull in feeds from their IDX, those photos are actually housed on the IDX company, and it's on them to compress it, and I think most of them do, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. There is a little bit of a handoff in that embedding that causes a slowdown that, frankly, that you really can't fix. It's dependent on how fast that feed's coming in, right? Does that make sense? The other thing that you can do is, if it's a WordPress site or any site that's a CRM and uses lots of plugins, is to delete the plug. First of all, don't use a lot of plugins, and to delete the plugins that you're not using. Limit the plugins as much as possible. I know in WordPress it's constantly updating to keep it secure, but a lot of the open source free software that we get through our plugins does not update. And in fact, I know of an IDX company in the real estate realm again that has not updated despite the WordPress updating, and it's caused some issues within them rendering their listings in the real estate world correctly. So you want to be real careful. It's that old thing, what you get for free, right? But a lot of that is what WordPress is, and it's just you have to keep an eye on making sure that you're updating these plugins, as well as just making sure there's no conflicts. Usually the first thing I check when there's a conflict or there's a problem in WordPress working where it looks broke is I turn off all the plugins and start looking at the plugins one by one to see if we can go with that. The third thing, and probably one of the top ones, is a CDN. Okay, you want a CDN. It's as simple as, if you go to say you go, a lot of you have GoDaddy, you get a website, you point it to your host, ns1.hostwhatever.com. Well, that's all you do on a CDN, except now it goes through the CDN as a stopping point before it gets to your site. And by what I just said, it seems like it would take longer for it to render, but it doesn't, because it's a caching system on super cloud fast rendering, so that speeds it up. It also does a couple other things that can help, like minify some of the code if you flip the right switches. Cloudflare is free, so the price is right, and I've been running Cloudflare, I think, on everything for the last probably year and a half, and I don't think I've had any problems with it. It'll also keep your site alive if your site dies for a few moments or whatever, like can happen with the server. It's not perfect. It's not going to keep it alive forever, but it will, if you tell it to, it will show a little bit of your site for a while. And that brings me to a bonus, number 4. We talked about server. Make sure you're on a fast server. If you're paying $5 a month for your hosting, guess what? Not a big guess that you're probably not going to be super fast. And here's the thing. Realize the reason it's so cheap is you're hosting it with 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 other websites, and if one of those websites starts running heavy resource intensive software or processes, or crons as it's called, on the server, guess what? Your site's going to be slowed to a crawl because you're on that same server. So you're dependent on everybody else acting like good citizens for you, which, you know what, if they're paying $5 a month, they're not really worried about you too much, are they? So that's the lessons, guys. Hopefully you appreciate that. Hopefully you understand that those are super simple. Let's go through them backwards. Get on a good server. The other thing is why a good server is important is if you're all sharing the same IP address usually, and if that IP address, that other IP address is a porn site, as an example, guess what you're sharing your neighborhood with? A porn site. Probably not a good idea, unless you're a porn site, and I doubt that if you're in my audience. So you don't want to do that. And so then the other thing is so you want a good server CDN. You want to limit your plugins, and you want to get rid of the heavy images. With that, I think that background noise is my cue. Tim O'Keefe, Spider Juice Technologies out.